All right, moving right along to story number 3, which takes us back into the wild, weird, zany world of gendered politics and gender identities. Did you know, gang, that this past Tuesday, May 19th, was Agender Pride Day? I was blissfully ignorant of the fact until Tuesday afternoon. I opened up Twitter, and Pink News, the pro-LGBTQIA2 plus news organization based in the UK, kindly reminded me of that fact. And probably if Pink News could have incarnated itself here in Midwestern America, it probably would have told me that my not knowing that it was Agender Pride Day was another example of, let me see here, white, heteronormative, cisgender privilege and oppression. But Agender Pride Day, it piqued my interest, and I did a little research, did a little digging just on Google to find out what other rainbow days are scattered throughout the calendar. Now, I'm not going to list all of them, but I want to share some of the things that I found. So, for example, May 19th, like I said, was Agender Pride Day. May 17th, just this past Sunday, was International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Transphobia. May 22nd is Harvey Milk Day. May 24th, Pansexual, Panromantic Awareness and Visibility Day. July 14th, International Non-Binary Peoples Day. September 23rd, Celebrate Bisexuality Day. October 8th, International Lesbian Day. October 11th, National Coming Out Day. October 17th, International Pronoun Day. October 19th, Spirit Day. October 26th, Intersex Awareness Day. Okay? And that isn't even getting into the fact that June, which is just around the corner, like I mentioned in our first episode, or in our first video of this episode, I should say, June is still Pride Month, and now October has been basically shanghaied into becoming National LGBT History Month. I mean, it just gets, it gets more and more insane. There's no other word for it, okay? Now, what does this mean? Okay, because you guys know me by now, and guys, and if anyone has just recently subscribed to the channel, first of all, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. You will come to know very, very soon that I try my damnedest not to stay on the surface. I try to go down deeper, okay, as deep as I can with these stories, and not just rant and rave and say, can you believe how stupid this is? Can you believe how idiotic? What is this world coming to? Agender Pride Day? What the hell? I try not to do that. It takes a lot of control sometimes. So, but what does this mean? I mean, seriously. I mean, we can laugh at this, and it probably deserves to be laughed at. In fact, it does deserve to be laughed at. But as Mark Stein pointed out back in 2012. I remember this. I remember this article that he wrote, the last article that he wrote actually for National Review before he was unceremoniously fired from that organization and that publication. But he was talking about transgender rights and about how transgenderism, according to the left, had become the new civil rights movement of our time. And Mark Stein said, you can laugh, but the people who matter in our society and in our culture, they're not laughing. They are taking that completely seriously. The idea that trans rights are the civil rights movement of the 21st century and of our time, they are taking that deadly seriously. Which is why we have to take it seriously. Which is why we can't just, point our fingers at it and say, how stupid, dude. How dumb do these people have to be, dude. What this means, this proliferation of what I'm going to start calling rainbow days, it really shows that this is becoming our new religion, okay? Not just the transgender movement, not just the gay rights movement, quote unquote. gender politics and gender identity itself is becoming the new religion of the United States. Okay? I mean, think about this. In the Middle Ages, what did you have, right? When the Catholic Church was the only form of Christianity that there was in the Middle Ages. What happened in the Middle Ages? What was it known for? I mean, a lot of feast days, right? A lot of saints' days, right? I'm Catholic myself. My great-grandparents, one set of my great-grandparents came from Sicily, and, my grandmother and my mom tell stories about how, they would do this for this saint's day and this for this saint's day. Saint's Day is very big in Sicily, still were very big, at least up until World War II. Right? So there were multiple saints' days and feast days where everyone would dress their best and they would go out and they would celebrate together as a community, and there would be games and festivities and laughter and drinking, etc., etc., etc. Is that reminding you of anything? Is that ringing any bells? What does that sound like? Kind of sounds like what's done today for pride parades, doesn't it? Or what's done, gathering together, it kind of sounds like what's done with drag queen story time, doesn't it? Now, I'm not saying that they're completely equal. I'm saying that the emotion is the same. Not that the spirit is the same, but it is the same spirit, the same desire, for lack of a better word, the same desire to worship something is the same. Because while man might be a rational animal, which he is, that makes him a political animal, right? But man, because he is a rational animal, is also a religious animal. He has to worship something. There are no atheistic societies, natural atheistic societies in the history of the world. The only time that you get atheistic countries and societies are when they are, in a sense, synthetic, like with the USSR, the old Soviet Empire, which made it a point to completely curb the religious instincts of the people and to suppress them because they were directed, that religious impulse was directed towards the Russian Orthodox Church, the traditional Church of Russia, to the Soviet state itself, right? It's the same spirit. It's also the same spirit behind the old civic holidays that America used to have. Really, right now, the only civic holiday that we have is Independence Day. That's the only big one. That's the one everyone remembers. But we used to have Flag Day, Constitution Day, Pulaski Day, tons and tons of civil holidays where we would come together and celebrate a common idea, a common kind of shared identity, if you will, or in that case, our identity as Americans. In the Middle Ages, or in Sicily, it was kind of the idea that, hey, we're all Catholic or something. This proliferation of rainbow days shows that the religion, like I said, of the United States and of the West, really, is becoming gender ideology and gender politics. That this is, if we stay on that trajectory, that is going to be the future. Now, why? Why would this become the new religion? Because it has to do, all this is in service to our ego. Okay? The human ego that Freud talked about. There is, and again, hat tip to Rod Dreher over at the American Conservative, because I actually found the link to this piece on his blog. But a man named Daryl Paul has a wonderful piece in the June 2020 issue of First Things, which is actually on First Things website. First Things is a great Christian website. And when I say Christian, I don't mean like lowest common denominator. It's very it's not academic. I mean, it is academic, but it's academia in the best sort of way that is easily digestible for everyone, okay? You don't have to be a PhD holder to understand the articles that First Things publish. It is a stimulating website. Let me put it like that. That's a good way of putting it. It's a stimulating website where Catholics and Orthodox Protestants of different denominations, publish articles, debate, discuss. It's a really great website. Well, Daryl Paul has a piece, and he actually argued that what he called this queering of America, okay, the takeover of queer politics, queer identity politics, gender ideology, is actually rooted in some of Sigmund Freud's ideas of psychology. Now, Paul actually says this is kind of the clever thing. A lot of Freud's ideas about psychology have been either debunked or they have been thrown on the wayside. I remember the one psychology class that I took. It was my first semester of my freshman year of college. And I took an intro to psychology class, and I remember us actually talking about Freud and saying that, yeah, a lot of what Freud had argued had either been disproved or contemporary psychologists, psychiatrists didn't put any stock into it anymore. Daryl Paul says that that's true, but some of the broad principles that Freud argued for aren't just a lie, but they have been digested into the national spirit. They've been digested. They have become, in a sense, part of our culture. And the three things that he talks about that have been internalized, the three principles from Freud that have been internalized in the West, particularly, of course, in this case, America, because that's what we're talking about, are individuality, authenticity, and social recognition. Now, individuality, this is what Paul says about individuality. Quote, "The self is a unique and creative spirit whose reason for its existence is its own expression. The therapeutic presents queerness as the exemplar of individuality. Barack Obama declared 8 LGBT Pride Months during his 8 years in the White House, and through each of them urged everyone to celebrate the great diversity of the American people. New York Pride advertised its 2018 festival under the slogan, 'Defiantly Different,' speaking to the tenacious individuality of LGBT persons and celebrating the next wave of creative thinkers prepared to score their own trails and each distinctive individual in between. From a therapeutic perspective, the more fantastic a sexual identity, the more it expresses individuality and thus the more exemplary it is." In other words, the more bizarre you can make it, the more out there that you are, the better it is, because it really proves that you are a unique individual. This is what happens. Your gender identity has now been linked to your individuality. Not to your personhood, but to your gender ideology. The more bizarre you make your gender ideology, the more individual you are. That's individuality. Authenticity, to quote Paul again. "To be authentic, one must neither lie about nor obscure one's feelings, desires, imaginations, and experiences that define the therapeutic self. This inner life must be brought outward, expressed, or even performed in words and deeds, confessions, and self-revelations." In other words, all the gaudy, horrible costumes that come, part and parcel with Pride Month? That is authenticity. Okay? I am expressing my true self. However, I define my true self. And I must express it, because if I did not, that would be lying. That would be to basically give in and listen to the white, heteronormative, cisgendered patriarchy that is doing its best to oppress me, the individual. That's authenticity. And the last one, social recognition, to quote Paul for the last time. "Therapeutic demands authentic selves that are not only expressed but also socially recognized. Mental health professionals once counseled the development of pro-social interdictions that would enable an individual's adaptation to social expectations. Under the therapeutic, they now advocate for the wholesale transformation of all of society in order to facilitate self-actualization. This is why Simple tolerance is wholly inadequate, for without recognition, selves will internalize a sense of inferiority and thus fail to become authentic. Okay? The key point there is that is why simple tolerance isn't enough. You can't just say, oh, well, you can do whatever you want over there, and I'm not going to come after you with a torch and a pitchfork or anything, but please keep it over there. Please, don't force me to make the flower arrangement for your throuple wedding. Please do not, force me to bake the cake. Please don't force me to take the photographs. This explains why. This explains a real this explains a rhetorical question that so many people on the right ask, because so many times, at least on Twitter and social media, you will find people asking rhetorically, oh, I thought that the left was supposed to be tolerant. Where's the tolerance on the left? You see videos of Charlie Kirk saying, where's the tolerance? Where's the tolerance? Trying to think, oh, so clever, you claim to be tolerant, and now I'm turning it back on you, because of course you're not being tolerant. I used to think that myself. I tried to pull that card when I was first on Twitter, which was longer ago than I would care to think about. But this explains why the left is not tolerant, why tolerance was always a Trojan horse. Because if you are just tolerant, like it says here, I'll read that part again because it's important. Simple tolerance is wholly inadequate, for without recognition, without everybody basically giving affirmation to how someone identifies. So again, what they are as an individual, according again to the left, and to their authenticity. Without that recognition, without that affirmation, selves will internalize a sense of inadequacy. For without recognition, selves will internalize a sense of inferiority and thus fail to become authentic, which will then, again, be an authenticity. Right? The inner life must be brought outward so as to define the therapeutic self. Because to not be authentic, to keep the inner self private and inside here, is not to be a fully free individual. It is to be oppressed from the white, cisgendered, heteronormative patriarchy. Okay? And that's why commentators like Lauren Chen, the Roaming Millennial, because she tweeted also about Agender Pride, and it was kind of a snarky tweet, let me see if I can paraphrase it. She said basically that, well, these people honestly believe that their gender identity is their personality, I'm shaking my head, how crazy is that? And it's like, that is what they think. It's not crazy to them. That's what makes it so dangerous. I will pull out one of my favorite quotes from G.K. Chesterton, the British author, again. The quote where he said that a madman is not someone who has lost his reason. A madman is someone who has lost everything except his reason. That's what makes them so dangerous. That's one reason why they are so dangerous, because they are not tolerant. They honestly believe this. Because now it's not just about what we always thought it was about. It's not just about, rights language, marriage, or even just doing whatever you want, but not forcing it down everybody's throat. No. Now it's about, they say that it's about freedom. It's about radical self-expressive freedom, which is the only way that we can become free. That is a powerful argument. And that is why, bad news here, gang. That is why the queer movement isn't being stopped. That's why so many people on the right don't want to stop it. For one reason, because they have no idea what in the hell is happening. Okay? They have no idea what's happening. It came over them like a tsunami. They are still kind of like in shell shock. Some of them don't want to do anything about it because that would disrupt their precious big tent that they're trying to build so that they can just win elections. And some on the right don't want to do anything because they have been seduced by the promise of gender ideology and gender politics and this therapeutic self. Because when you get right down to the root, It is the same message that the snake says to Adam and Eve, if at the risk of becoming religious and referencing the book of Genesis. Excuse me. When the snake says, "You will be as gods." Well, that's what this is saying. You can be whatever you want. The sky is the limit. Whatever you feel, whatever you believe yourself to be, that is your true self. And then to free that true self, you must be authentic to yourself by expressing it however you decide is genuine. And then everyone has to affirm that identity and that authenticity so that you can continue being authentic, you can continue to be your one true self, and so you can continue to be free. That is an inordinate amount of power. The ability to become whatever you want. And a lot of people on the right have succumbed to that temptation, because that is a very, very strong temptation. The ability to make reality however you want. And when the culture has taken that pill and swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and that is becoming the default, you're not the most popular guy at the party when you say, yeah, we really can't do that. Reality is what it is. You can't remake it. There are men and there are women, and that's about it. And men and women should do things, with each other that other people shouldn't. I didn't make the rules. Like Beetlejuice says, hey, I don't make the rules. That is going up. That is basically throwing yourself into a lion den these days. And that's why the right doesn't want to stop this. Okay? That is story number 3.